Tool 2 enables you to identify modules of interest if all you have is the list of genes. For example, hits from a screen or warm orthologs of genes you might think are interesting in a different organism, or even just a single gene. Specifically, it accomplishes two things. It tests whether your genes are significantly overrepresented within each of the 209 gene modules using a hypergeometric test. And it also shows which modules your genes or gene belong to. Yes, one gene can belong to multiple modules. Indeed, half of all genes belong to more than 3 modules, and about 4% of all genes don't belong to any module. A disclaimer, Tool 1 is more powerful than Tool 2 at identifying modules in your data. And that's because it uses information about expression of every single gene in your data set. So if you do have a gene expression data comparing a condition of interest to a control, as opposed to just a gene list, we do recommend that you use Tool 1. But here, let's take a look at Tool 2. To use Tool 2, you enter a list of genes or a single gene you'd like to analyze. You can either enter by hand, like so, separated by a space, or you can paste from an Excel file, like this. So let's say, for example, I want to see if warm heat shock protein genes are enriched in any particular module. And these are entered here by default as an example. So I click Submit. And the first thing I see is a table that tells me which of my input genes were actually used in this analysis. And that's because modules were defined using microarray data, and my genes need to be converted to Affymetrix probe set IDs. So for example, I see that HSP1 did not match any probe sets, whereas HSP100 matched to 2 probe sets. Next down is a results plot with each module plotted on the x-axis versus significance of enrichment of my input genes within each module on the y-axis. So for example, all modules above this red dotted line here have an adjusted p-value of less than 0.001. So it looks like module 65 is highly overrepresented for HSP genes. Similar to Tool 1, the table below summarizes the results from the results plot, as well as provides some limited descriptive information about each module. Finally, the last table shows me all modules to which my genes of interest belong. For example, if I want to see which of my genes belong to module 65, I can sort by module, increase this to all, and then look at 65. So these are all of the genes from my input list that actually belong to module 65. Or if I want to know all the modules to which a gene of interest belongs, I can just search for it here. Then it shows me all the modules to which HSP 12.3 belongs. This last table is useful if you're analyzing a single gene. You can ask, which modules does my gene belong to? So for example, if I enter a neuronal gene, say 48, oops. So first of all, there's no enrichment as expected because it's a single gene. But down here, I see that it belongs to the A hemi module of module 185. So this means that this gene is co-expressed with other genes that belong to this module. And by looking up what unites these genes, I can get an idea about the function of my gene.